Hey Dragons, I know I asked you to write down this thing in your composition book several meetings ago. It was Hoivux. H stood for horizontal line, O stood for slope of zero, Y talked about the equation being Y equal, and then the Vux was V was the vertical line, U was undefined slope, and X was the equation, was X equal a number. But what does all that stuff really mean? So in this video, what I want to talk about are the details behind Hoivux. And you notice that we're talking about the slope. I have various definitions of slope. M is the letter for slope. Delta y over delta x means that we're going to see the change in the y over the change in the x's. But ultimately we know that is rise over run. And I want to talk about what the slopes are in Hoivux. The slopes are the zero for the horizontal and undefined for the vertical. So what's up with zeros in slope? And to answer that, we need to just go back to the basics. Let's talk about rise and run. Where does zero need to be in this fraction of rise over run in order for it to actually equal zero or make it undefined? So what I want you to do now is just take a calculator like I've taken here and let's play around with things. Let's put a zero in the top of a fraction and just pick a number. I picked 5. Pick any non-zero number as your denominator. So if we're talking rise over run, in this example I have a rise of 0 and a run of 5. So what is that? Well, if you notice, if I press enter, the calculator says that I have a slope of 0. So if I'm dealing with a horizontal line and I have a slope of 0, that means that my rise is going to be 0 and my run is going to be a non-zero number. Now let's change that around. Let's now switch positions on my fraction. Instead of doing 0 over 5, let's do 5 over 0. So let's make 5 my rise and 0 my run. Well, let's see what the calculator says about this. Uh-oh, that's not good. Calculator's trying to tell you something. They're saying that, well, there's an error. They're telling me that I'm dividing by 0, and that's just simply not allowed. So if I take a look at this, let's go back and talk about my two scenarios, and let's try to talk about it in real terms. If I took $0, I'm a teacher, I'm broke. If I have no money, $0, but I divide it amongst my 5 students that come for tutorials, do they each receive the same amount of money? And the answer is yes, they do. Each of my 5 students will get $0. So 0 is capable of being divided by 5. However, if I take 5 and divide it by 0, let's say I have 5 students and I tell them to divide into 0 groups, that's impossible. I'll either have a group of 5, or even if I split them up, I will have 2 groups, one with 2 and one with 3. But if I try to divide my students up, I always have to have some kind of groups. I can't have 0 groups. That makes no sense. So that's where the undefined comes from. So let's take a look at some of the problems that you might face. Well, how about this one? This one says to find the equation of a line with a slope of 0 that goes through -4, 2. Now, anytime you see this phrase, find the equation of a line we usually start with, well, the best place to start, which is our point slope formula. Okay? Hopefully you have that memorized. All right, so if we have a slope of 0, okay, well, let's put a slope of 0 right there. And there's my x value, there's my y value. So I get y minus the 2 is equal to that. X minus a negative 4, I'm going to wind up with double signs. So I wind up with y minus 2 is equal to 0 times x plus 4. Now, what am I going to distribute? I'm going to distribute a 0. And 0, when it's multiplied, is very powerful. 0 times x is 0. Not even 0x. It's just plain old 0. It wipes out the x. What's 0 times 4? It's also 0. So my entire right-hand side of the equation turns to 0. And if I solve for y, look what I get. That's the 0 pair. I get y equals 2. That was my HOI. A horizontal line has a slope of 0 and the equation is y equals 2. So if I come over here and I look at the point, negative 4, 2, that's right here. The slope of 0 means that I do not have a rise. Remember back when we talked about rise over run and where is 0 acceptable and where is it not? Well, in this particular case, if I go from one point to another point on a horizontal line, do I have to rise from this point to actually get to this one? No, I rise nothing. I rise 0. And then I can run, in this case I run 3. Is 0 on top of a fraction okay? Well, according to my calculator it is. And so that's why horizontal lines have a slope of 0. So let's look at the last situation. Find the equation of a line with undefined slope that goes through 6, 1. All right. 99% of the time, this is what you need. This works 99% of the time. Well, guess what that 1% of the time where it doesn't work? If my slope has no definition, if it is undefined, there's nothing I can put her. I mean, what do I put there? Do I put the word undefined? I mean, I don't know. I don't have a number. They don't tell me a rise over run. They just say it's undefined. So this is the 1% of the time where it does not work. I can't use this, so I have to have some other method. So let's come over here. Let's graph this point. There's 6, 1. Okay, and let's go back to the old rise over run. Okay, so where would 0 go to make a fraction undefined? Well, if you remember in our little calculator exercise, whenever my run was 0, the calculator said error, or we call it undefined. See, the calculator didn't know how to divide by 0, and neither do I. So if I'm over here at this point and I'm told that I can't run, remember run is going left and right, I have a run of 0, I can't move left or right, but I can rise to any point I want. So in this particular case, sorry about the sloppy line, but you get the idea, I can rise 2, and that would be the point directly above it. And you see what kind of line I'm forming. I'm forming a vertical line. Because my run is 0, which makes a fraction undefined, that means that all I can do is rise. So I can go up and down. I can stack points on top of 6, 1 and on the bottom. Notice that all of the x coordinates on this vertical line, all of them are 6. So in this case, my equation, all my x's are going to be 6. So this is a vertical line, x equals 6, and that's where the VUX comes from. Vertical lines have an undefined slope, and the equation is x equals.